Yeah. But yeah, I think I leave the introduction and further details to you.
I can do a little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
super.
Yeah, so thanks, Robert, and afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so Rob Loader, my name. I'm one of the officer executives. Specifically, I look after what's called capital planning and delivery, or capital management. What's that mean? It basically means that I run the project management, the enterprise-wide project management shop or office within Telstra, and that looks after capital and other project investments to the tune of somewhere between $3 to $5 billion a year. The last sort of 3 or 4 years has been sort of close to $5 billion a year. We're in the process of managing down to a longer run trajectory that's more like 3. And we spend those projects, or we spend that money on projects that range from quite substantial heavy industry engineering type solutions, so mobile towers, buildings, exchanges, all that sort of thing, which are the backbone of telecommunications and media, etc., right the way through to software engineering, new products, etc., that work on your handsets and all those sort of media offers and products and so on and so forth. It's started off as so Telstra, for those that may not know much about it, Telstra started off in the early 1900s, so it's one of the few 100-year-old plus companies left in the world. You go and Google, see how many there are. There's actually not that many of them left, so they tend to change a fair bit. And Telstra's had a lot of change at that time. It started off literally doing telegraph, and I was involved in running the overland telegraph in Australia, and then to connect that to the world via undersea telegraph cables. And then of course these days it's all out in the ether somewhere. It's all microwaves and sound waves and whatever else. And so, but we're also a media business, we're a health business. We operate one of the largest subsea and overland transmission cable networks in the world. So even if you're not a Telstra customer, but you're making calls or data exchange overseas, chances are it's running on a Telstra owned or a Telstra leased or a Telstra partner cable. We literally run big cables at the back of a boat and let them sink to the bottom of the ocean. Occasionally someone drags one up. You may have heard recently the Bass Strait one got dragged up by well, we don't know who dragged it up, but someone dragged it up, a fishing trawler or something, and cut the cable, and it literally cut Tasmania off. Some people would say Tasmania's been cut off for quite some time, but it was cut off for quite a period in terms of what that meant was that the amount of traffic that could move through that cable was limited for a period. Anyway, enough. A little bit more about me. These buildings weren't here. Well, this building certainly wasn't when I studied at Monash. So it's my old alma mater. Going back to doing a Bachelor of Business in Banking and Finance. I won't say when, because it gives away just how young I am. It was a long time ago, and I did a Master's of Project Management sometime later, but that wasn't at Monash. So I've got an affinity with Monash, and as Robert said, I'm on the advisory group for the Master's Project Management, which is a great pleasure and to be on, and more than happy to take feedback, etc. More broadly, my background's in, started off in banking, financial services, a lot of retail, fast-moving consumer goods, management consulting, energy, utilities, government of various forms or another, both domestically and overseas, in all those domains. And the glue that's held all that together, so quite diverse industries, both working throughout Asia, throughout the US, Europe, and a lot in Australia, obviously. Maybe not so obviously, Australia and New Zealand. But the glue that's held all those roles together in some way or another has been change. Change management, project management, strategy, in some form or other, strategy management. And as Michael Porter, some of you might know of Michael Porter, the author, all about management and strategy, very famous one, along with Peter Drucker and others in the 1950s and then Porter in the 70s and 80s, really framed up management as we know it today. Some of that's in here, the underlying routines of management and project management. But they made, Drucker in particular and Porter later made the distinction between it's really important to have a strategy and a really clear strategy and a great product and all those sorts of things, but that's not so useful if you can't execute on them. You can't get them to market if they don't work, etc. So therein lies the heart of project management in organisations. And it doesn't matter what you call it, whether we call it project or something else, or project management or something else, that ability to manage change is at the heart of organisations growing, sustaining, and being, I guess, surviving in many respects. So I'm going to talk through some of that today. The way I probably do this is there's sort of three broad topics I'm going to cover off. Let's just look at that Telstra in case you're interested. You can read that at your own leisure. I mean, our vision is to create a brilliant connected future for everyone. That's what we do. We basically join things together, as telecommunications and media does. And we're a big organisation. We're one of the 10 largest telecommunication companies in the world. Okay, so not just. Some people might not realise that Telstra operates globally, mostly through that all those points of presence there are mostly through that cable transmission network. So we're not a small player, and we have probably the largest. Not probably, we do have the largest single mobile telecommunications network in the world, just because of Australia's geographic size. Very few organisations, you take telecommunication companies in Europe, might be bigger in market capitalisation, etc. than Telstra, but they don't cover as big a geographic space or deliver services as wide or the diverse range of services we do. Moving on, project management. So why am I talking about project management? Why am I doing it in the context of Telstra? Because I've worked with lots of different organisations. But Telstra, project management's always been a heart of what we do. We're basically an engineering company is where we started, a bunch of engineers running overlay and telegraph and building fixed line networks and building mobile networks and media networks and so on and so forth. But at the heart of that has always been managing change and always been delivering new services, products, etc. So whether we called it project management or not, it's always been a core skill of Telstra. We're not too bad at it. We don't blow too many things up. We don't always do everything as efficiently as we'd like to do, but that's something we're trying to improve. That's part of my role. So not just run the balancing of the book, so working out where we're going to put money and how much we're going to spend where, which I'll come to the processes for that a bit later. But it's also about making sure we can do it in the most effective way and grow project management capability, just as you're trying to grow your own individual capability. My role is to grow the organisation's capability in project management. So project management has featured very much in our past. It's certainly a key part of our present as we're running a very large strategic transformation program, and change and projects are a big part of that. And we don't see a situation where it won't be a key part of our future. If anything, the ability to manage change and do it really, really well, that execution piece, great strategy through execution, is probably even more important as things get tougher and harder and more competitive and expectations continue to rise. I won't labour that one. So there's three things I want to try and cover off, but I'm going to pause here for a second and just see if there's other topics that you might be interested in. So I can probably talk underwater for as long as there's oxygen in the water, which is a long time typically. But which might be interesting, but may not be useful. So what I'm really sort of trying to get a bit of sense of will be what's useful to you. If there's other specific topics that you're interested in, chances are I've probably got them covered. If not, I can certainly talk to them. So three key topics. I want to talk firstly about at the sort of organisational level, the role of strategic planning and how that has to dovetail with the execution planning. And that's where things like PMOs and portfolio management and some of the work you've just been doing about prioritising a portfolio, that's very much at the heart of that, so we'll talk through that. And what's becoming more and more the point of reference for organisations today is doing that in a much more integrated or end-to-end way. It's not been unusual for many organisations to have project management sort of back of house and not really connected with the strategy and whatever else was going on at the front of house, and let alone connect with the broader financial systems and dynamics of the organisation. Telstra has suffered from that as well. But today, as organisational financials, competitive markets, our own cost dynamics become more and more tighter, in other words, we have less money, we've got to use it more wisely, and we've got to know what we're doing with it in advance, and with more surety of getting the outcomes from spending that investment, it means you've got to really join the dots on the financials all the way through. So I'll cover off some of that. I will then go into a little bit of those management structures. So there's no doubt, I mean, the one thing that's as a given about organisations and project management in particular is just when you think you've learnt it, something else evolves, something else changes, okay? So one of the key sort of tenets which I've operated on personally is always about learning and growth, and every day you learn something new. It's the reason why I've never stopped doing both formal learning, from a bachelor's degree to project management consulting certificate through to my master's project management, plus accreditation with professional associations along the way with both the Australian Institute of Project Management, and the Project Management Institute, so on and so forth. Some of those you may have heard of. I'm happy to touch base around those as well. Because apart from representing Telstra today, I'm also I'll spruik again, the Australian Institute of Project Management as well, where I'm the Vice President of the local chapter in Victoria. We'll talk about governance structures and just how that's evolving, and how project management therefore needs to evolve with it. We'll cover off some things like Agile project management. Now you can use Agile, I'm going to use Agile in a very broad sense, because Agile can cover a very broad range of methodologies. There's no one Agile. It's a bit like religion. There's lots of variations. Okay, so we'll cover that off. And then I'm going to talk about specifically going into what does that then mean for the roles of leadership and for project managers, project sponsors specifically. Because with changing organisations and changing shape of organisations and the changing role of project management and how it's being done, comes differences and challenges for the roles that maybe have been quite traditional and certainly have been, over the last 20 or 30 years, relatively stable. I think that we're at a crossroads where there's significant change to come for what it means to be a project manager and a change leader in organisations going forwards. To be really clear, it does not change the need for the foundation skills and the basic competencies and behaviours, but how you might use them is probably going to change. So pause there for a sec. One, to draw breath. Two, to ask you, is there anything else or anything in particular that you might want to sort of focus in on or zero in on as relative to what you're studying in the course or your personal situation or a particular item of topic of topical interest? You might think of something along the way. That's fine. I'm going to run through each of those sections. We'll do a bit of a pause and open up to some questions, and hopefully I can provide you some answers. But look, if you've got a burning question on the way through, please feel free just to raise it. Okay? And that will be perfectly fine. And we'll adjust for effect. Now, there's a few slides, about 30 odd slides in here, about 25 or so of actual content, the rest are just bits and pieces. If we don't get to them, that's okay. I'll make sure you've got a pack available and you can explore them. Some of them we might just brush over a little bit, some we might go a bit deeper. Be guided a bit by you as to where you want to go, so don't be shy. So capital management and the central PMO or the enterprise-wide PMO. Have you studied different types of project management offices so far? Or looked at project management offices? Anyone work in a project management office? No? Okay. Do you know what a PMO does? Yeah. Okay, what's it do? Give me some words.
So PMO look after more like a processing, procedures, templates, and just organizing structure of how project within the portfolio is done. So they kind of govern project in terms of overseeing what's the new trend, what's the new delivery method should be used within the organization.
Excellent. Great answer. I hope you recorded that because that was really good.
Yeah, I recorded.
Capture here. That was really good. Yeah, look, it can do all those things. That's exactly right. What else can a PMO do? Some of it's actually up there. There's a clue there. I'm not really sure. But I'm going to go into each of those a little bit.
Also manage the planning and finance of the projects.
Yeah. Yeah. Look. So as a project manager, as a project management professional, as a portfolio manager. Some days I feel more like an accountant, which is not my qualification. It wasn't part of my Bachelor of Business course. I could have gone down that route, but I hope it's not going to offend anyone. Accountants are pretty boring. I work with them every day, frankly. I'm sure they're lovely people, but boring topic for me personally. Projects are much more interesting, and it's the reason why I fell into them. Sorry, Robert's not an accountant, by the way. So you're right. So that portfolio planning, working out basically how many baskets you're going to have, and how much money you're going to put in each basket, or how much resource you're going to put in each basket is a core aspect of it. And that's something we do up here as well. Any other key thoughts?
And also, like, PMO team provides training for the project team.
Yes, so competency and capability, yeah, exactly. You guys don't need me, it's all covered, it's all good. So you're right, so all of that's the breadth of it. So in Telstra, there's sort of 5 broad functions that our enterprise PMO does. Now, why am I stressing enterprise? In many organisations, there are many models of PMOs, and I'll talk through some of them a little bit. You can have PMOs that are sort of one time. They're temporary. So So they're there to support maybe a specific program or a specific project for a period of time. So when the program or project's complete, the PMO goes away. Okay, they're a bit like the circus. Comes to town, does the act, and they take the tent down, then everyone goes away and moves on to the next project, right? Then you've got PMOs that may be chartered around a particular divisional line or maybe a functional line. So down, say, sales, to support the sales business, or support the IT business, which typically runs cross-functionally, those sorts of things. Then you've got, quickly racing up the tree, you've got enterprise PMOs, where they have a whole of business, whole of organisation focus. So at Telstra, we have dozens and dozens of PMOs that sit in each of those categories. We have some one-time ones that are there to support a dedicated program, so when it's finished, the PMO will go away, as the program does. We have some functional ones, so ones that are embedded in each function of the business. We have 8 major functions, and so each one of those has a PMO. We actually call it a portfolio office, but the primary role is the financial management aspects. It does do the other things as well, but its primary role is financial management and financial planning. So that they sort of look after down that stream, down that functional stream. What I run sits above all those, and so that's the enterprise-wide one. And we have 5 major functions. We look after, so we have like the EPMO function stuff, which is what you were talking about earlier, the sort of planning, the governance, knowing where we've put the money, making sure we spend it where we said we're going to, that there's a sufficient control mechanism about the money happening and how it translates from project spend into the general ledger, the financials, etc., tracking, reporting, all that, escalating if there's issues and things off track, etc. We then have the portfolio planning, like the gentleman at the back said. So that's actually deciding the baskets and how many eggs go in each basket. That's a core process I do with the executive, with my executive peers and the CEO on a regular basis, where we sit there and decide at the start of each year, we're actually doing it right now for the next 3 years, how much money, how many baskets we're going to invest in. So we're going to invest in mobile telephony, in fixed line business, maybe in media, in our core operations, so on and so forth. And then how much are we going to put in to each of those baskets? How much investment we're going to pay? So we go through a prioritisation process, probably using some criteria not dissimilar to what you're doing, where we stack rank all the things that are going to go into each basket. We then have, why do we do projects in the first place? Actually, why do we do projects in the first place? That's a good question. Why do we do projects? Project management's sexy. We do projects because they're fun. Why do we do projects?
Deliver a result, service, or product.
Deliver a result, service, or product, yeah, particularly for a customer, shareholders, etc. So with that in mind, we have a dedicated function around business case and benefits tracking. It's often the poor cousin in project management, or particularly in portfolio management, many organisations. They do all the other things, tracking, reporting, maybe planning, maybe competency support, methodologies, etc. But they don't track benefits. So it gets a bit hard. It's the hardest of the whole lot. So what do when it's hard? We put a dedicated function to it, make it important. We also do asset management because we spend a lot of money every year. It translates into a pretty big asset base. Telstra's asset base, as fixed assets, etc., things you can stick labels on, is about $80 odd billion of assets that we run, that we manage. We depreciate those over time, of course, and managing some of them you write off and write down and all that sort of thing. So managing such a big asset base requires a dedicated function. That's now been brought in, that spirit of end-to-end financial planning, that's now been brought in under my team as well. And then I skip past this one, because in many respects, it's quite different. These are all relatively mechanical, they're financial, they're about doing stuff, okay, about the execution of projects or the support of execution of projects, or knowing that we've got the outcomes arising from the execution of projects. The Chief Project Office is a little bit different. It goes to more what this lady was saying, which is about competency and training and capability. So the Chief Project Office is all about uplifting the project management execution competency of project managers, of project sponsors. It helps with defining methodologies and rolling out methodologies and training and so on and so forth. It's one of the most important pieces we do because I'm the executive for capital management and delivery. And a big part of the delivery piece is about uplifting competency. Moving on. I won't labour this. I'll probably just explain how they each support. There's a little bit more colour, which is ironic for a black and white slide. Anyway, it's a lot more colour about what they do, okay, which I'm largely just covered up. The key things is we operate really from what I call strategy through the benefits. So, which is a really important distinction, because again, many portfolios, many project management offices will focus on maybe reporting and governance, or maybe training and training support and coaching, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that, they're all important things, but we run right through from the strategic planning, right the way through to execution and benefits and back again. Now, don't try and read the detail on this, you will go blind. The key points are this. In running the enterprise-wide portfolio management office, with those functions I've just talked about, you know, the EPMO or planning governance, etc., benefits realisation. What we are really trying to do is provide to the organisation a set of disciplines. And those set of disciplines are essentially characterised, if you think about a singular project for a second, they're characterised by making sure that when we're conceptualising the work we're going to do, right the way through planning how to do it, and then actually doing it, and then realising the benefits from it, where our role is not necessarily to manage all those things. We have lots of projects. We do about 800 to 1,000 individual discretionary projects each year. We also probably do about somewhere between another sort of 3,000 to 5,000 or more other pieces of project work, which could entail building a rolling out a mobile tower, building a new exchange, running out optic fibre, taking a new product to market, etc. So we do a lot of activity every year, and you squeeze a lot into $3 to $5 billion. But the glue of what we're trying to bring, and this is not about a specific method, so don't get hung up on this as a particular method. This is about a mindset around investment management. So the big thing we bring to this is investment management. And really the key thing are the questions we're asking along the way. Is, you know, why would we do this project? Should we do it? Okay? Why is it important? How's it linked to strategy? What's the problem or the opportunity that it's trying to fix? Okay. Is it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to do now? Is this solution the right way to address it? So on and so forth. Then we get into, can we do it? Are we ready to do it? Because it's great to have a lovely idea that links perfectly to strategy, but do we actually have the capability and competency and capacity to do it now? Okay. Or do we have to bring in help, or maybe we should wait? Having done it, you can ask, are we finished? Have we done all we're supposed to have done? Because it's funny, these things, our projects are really tightly defined. Often they're not, often they're quite ambiguous. Particularly as we move into more software engineering space, as you move into some of the more virtualized aspects of organizations, it's harder to sometimes, you know, say, is it finished? When you're building a building, you know when the building's done or not. You know, that it's got walls, roof, windows, running water, electricity, all those sort of things. You know when it's done. Well, you certainly know probably when it's not done, don't you? It's much more obvious. It's a bit less with software and other sort of things. And then last, we haven't realised the benefits. And those sort of 5 things really characterise the role that we play through those functions that I've explained. Does that make any sense? Okay, let's move on. Look, you can read these later. This will just make the point that it's great to have all these methods and management models and the charter to do all this, and etc. One of the most important things you need to have is executive support. Without the executive support to run a PMO, whether it be within a functional line or within a singular program or project or enterprise-wide level, is you have to have executive support. Because the very heart of what you're doing is generating contention and trying to resolve contention. And conflict, contention, ambiguity, those sorts of things. It's a big part of the role I play. I feel like actually, between feeling like an accountant some days and an amateur psychologist the other days, or a marriage broker, sometimes we're trying to join people together, you often don't feel like a project manager. But that's the irony of it. The key on this is I'm very lucky I've got a CEO who really understands this stuff, really gets it, really understands the importance of execution and strategy. Not one or the other, you've got to have both. And he's got a market many times talking about it, and he's won awards for it personally himself. All right, let's move on. I'm going to focus on this taking those concepts, just linking them in the next level of detail. So hopefully that will have a bit more direct correlation to what you've just been doing. This is just a starting point, that there's really 3 things going on in any organisation at one point in time. Okay? You've got the continuing evolution and definition and refresh of the organisation's strategy. Because strategies are not stagnant. And can anyone think of an organisation where they've had the one strategy and they stuck to it and they're still here today? Anyone might have heard the horror stories of some organisations that not yet. What was their strategy?
Stay with the same technology that they were using for the past 20 plus 30 years.
Yeah, build the world. Well, they built the world's best handsets. They had the market. They had 80% of the market at its peak. Right? Everyone had a Nokia phone. If you didn't have a Nokia phone, you were probably embarrassed. You wouldn't if it rung, you'd go, "That's my phone." Come to see that's not a Nokia. Right? But what didn't they do? They got pretty arrogant, and they sort of pretty quickly dismissed the view that this smart stuff, we don't need that sort of. Who wants to do photos and video and stuff like that on a phone? It'll never fly. Right? So they sort of simply didn't see what they missed was not really what competitors are doing. What they missed was what consumers would respond to. There's lots of others out there. Kodak was actually involved in building the first digital camera. They just didn't think it was going to make any money. So they basically ceded that market to digital camera companies, who then eventually ceded it to mobile telephony companies. Who uses a digital camera these days, unless you're a professional photographer really into it. So strategy development also evolves. Okay, so all these things are organic, they keep going. So having that strategy is really important. You've got to know where you're trying to get to, what's the organisation outcomes, what's the organisation going to look like at some point in time that you're trying to strive for. It sets the boundaries by which you then try and define how to get there. And how to get there is made up of two things. The operational, if you like to call it the business as usual,